Welcome back to Introlinguistics. Today we're going to do our second phonology lecture. Today we're going to look at syllables, their structure, the sonority hierarchy, setting up syllables, and we're going to take a look at the case example of aspirated K in English. So, what is a syllable? You all have a rough idea of a syllable. So in school, we're taught the beat of the sound, so happy, you'd clap every time you hear a syllable, improvise, applaud, and you have these weird rules where in English, if you have two letters together, like two P's, you make those a syllable, you separate them. Improvise, you just have to listen to them, and you'll figure out where the syllables are. So intuition, again, we see this double P in applaud, but we know in linguistics that in happy, where we have two P's written, there's only one P sound. So you don't say hap-P, you say ha-P. You don't say applaud, you say applaud. So really this written syllable structure doesn't really make any sense, and that's the problem with orthography. Orthography is very bad for talking about syllables. It's very bad for teaching kids how to write, because, for instance, thought goes through. English is very bad for orthography. So instead we use IPA. So I've written out these words in IPA, and we'll show you how to separate syllables. So when we specifically separate syllables in IPA, we put dots. So happy, improvise, applaud. So we see 2 syllables for happy, 3 for improvise, and 2 for applaud. Now, of course, there's also stress, so we can include that. So happy, the primary stress is on hap, so we put primary stress there. Improvise, improvise, improvise. The main stress is at the beginning of the word for im on that syllable. Improvise. We might be saying, how do you know that's primary stress? So we can force primary stress when we speak. So instead of saying improvise, I could say improvise, improvise. That sounds really weird, but that is primary stress on pro. Now let's put primary stress on vise. Improvise, improvise. We don't say that when we speak. We say improvise. So that primary stress is on im. What about applaud? Applaud, applaud, applaud. Which sounds better? Applaud. So that plod has primary stress. Okay, so that is syllables in IPA and how we can write them. So, important part is structure. So syllables are kind of complex. Now I'm going to use the word stream in English, spelled like that. And in IPA, we would write it like this. I should use the correct R's. Of course, R is like that. Don't really feel like it, so I won't. So we have the onset and the rhyme. So we have a syllable. This is sigma. This is lowercase sigma in Greek. We use it because it starts with an S, same as syllable. This breaks into the onset and the rhyme contains the nucleus and the coda. The most important part is the nucleus. So this is the center vowel. So for instance in stream, it's the E. So this is the vowel of every syllable. So usually when we have vowels, a vowel will be in its own syllable, the diphthong will be in its own syllable. So that is like the head of the syllable. That is the body lifting it up. So then we have everything to the right of the vowel is in the coda. So for in stream, it's one syllable. So in that syllable, the remaining sound is So that's where the coda is. And the onset is everything before the nucleus. So in stream, it's still one syllable. So we have the STR, and this is all in the onset. In some languages, you couldn't have STR in the onset, but in English we can. So we have the onset STR, the nucleus E, and the coda so stream. So that's syllable structure. Now, we'll do some examples here. So for instance, in the word fight, we see we have this I here. This is the main vowel, I, so it's part of the nucleus. Everything to the right of the vowel is in the coda, and the nucleus and the coda make up the rhyme. And then the onset is everything to the left of the vowel here. So in this case, we have the f, or fight, the F, the f. So we have a one-syllable word, fight. Now what happens when there's two syllables? Well, in the word missing, we have this I, and we have this I, missing. So we have two is. So we say, okay, each of these vowels is going to be a nucleus. And then we build the rest upon it. So again, orthography is bad. So we don't do it with orthography. First, we transform it to IPA. So here's the IPA. We see our nucleus above the two vowels. Now, usually what you do is you look left and you say, is it okay to have those letters in our onset? In this case, we take a look at M, so M, that's okay. So we put M in the onset. And then from the other nucleus, we take a look to the left and we see a S. Is that good in the onset? We say yes, so we put it in the onset of the second syllable. And then with the remaining, we just fill up the coda. So syllables do require some intuition of the language you're looking at. So, for instance, I wouldn't ask somebody who has just started learning English 1 year ago and say, hey, can you build these syllable structures? Because they probably couldn't do it correctly 100% of the time. While if you're an English speaker, you kind of have this really nice intuition about how these things work. So we wouldn't say miss-ing, we would say mi-sing. So you can hear this S in the onset of the second syllable. So another way is just write it out first and put the syllable marker in your transcription and use that to help you build. So those are some of the examples. Now let's take a look at the fun Pig Latin in English. So Pig Latin occurs in English, as most people would tell you, when you take the first letter of the word, move it to the end of the word, and add a to the end. So fight becomes ite-fe. Missing becomes issing-me. But there's a little bit more to that. So really what's happening here is if you translate to the syllable structures, you take the onset and you get rid of it. So you take the onset, the very first onset, you create a new syllable, which goes into a rhyme, a nucleus and a coda, and another onset. And you move the old onset to the new onset. So that F in fight becomes F in the second syllable. And then your nucleus is just A. And the coda is non-existent. So this fight becomes ite-fe. What about in missing? Well, first we add the third syllable. We break it up. The nucleus is going to have A in it. And this onset here simply moves over here. So this becomes, let's make that arrow shorter. It gets deleted. So issing may. So that's the process here. We take the first onset, we create a new syllable at the very end, we make its nucleus A, and then we move the old first onset into that last syllable as that syllable's onset. So we have this here. So here's my question. When we say the word strong, and we want to go to Pig Latin, do we say trong say? Or do we say ongstray? So the idea here is that with English speakers, we would without a doubt, people who don't know the formal rule would say ongstray. Now what does this mean? This means that the onset in English is real. This onset is a real part of syllable structure. So we could say, okay, this is just a theory. We don't know for sure. But language games and our ability to move this without knowing any formal rules tells us that we know what an onset is. We would never say trong say. We would never just move the first sound. We have to move the whole onset over. So this would follow the same process as above. We move the first onset to the onset of their added syllable. So people do know about syllable structure in their minds. They may not know about it formally, but in their minds you know that syllables are broken down into pieces. So that's a very cool thing here. Pig Latin is very, very cool. Language games tell us a lot about language, because language games require things that you don't normally do in speech, but yet you have this intuition of it. So that's my tangent. I'll get back to video content. So, next part, sonority hierarchy. This is very important for syllables, because the way syllables are built are based around the sonority hierarchy. Basically, we give 5 points to different classes: obstruents, nasals, liquids, glides, and vowels. Obstruents have 1 point, nasals have 2, liquids have 3, glides have 4, vowels have 5. So what are obstruents? These are the consonants s, ers, sh, t, p, g, sh, z, zh, ch. A bunch of those consonants. Nasals, of course, Liquids are L and R, so L and R. Glides are our semi-vowels, so W and Y. And vowels, of course, are the vowels. So, we assign them points. Now, why do we assign them points? Why do we assign them sonority points? So, here's terminology. Vowels are more sonorous. So, that's a term you should know. Sonorous. I think that's how you spell it. I'll not handwrite that so you can see it. So, the further right you go, the more sonorous they become. Syllable structure is based around sonority. So, let's chart these words. So, first of all, let's remember obstruents, nasal, liquids, glides, vowels. You could remember on, ligva. You could make an anagram if that helps you, but over time you'll just get used to it. So, message, that's a nasal. So that goes up to 2, or sorry, nasal goes up to 2. That's a vowel, it goes all the way up to 5. S, that's an obstruent, gets 1. Again, that's a vowel, goes up. And j, that's an obstruent. So, what do we see here? We see that the nucleus here is actually the highest peak. And then it looks left to get its onset, and then it looks right to fill up its coda. So let's see if this happens with the word revolution. So, R is a liquid. So, that is a 3. Is a vowel, so that's a 5. V is obstruent. Vowel, liquid is a 3. U is a vowel. Sh, obstruent. Is a vowel. N is a nasal. Okay. Revolution. 4 syllables. I see 4 peaks here. So I see 4 nucleuses. And what do we do with the nucleus? Well, first we look left and we fill up our onsets. So we fill these up. And then we look right and we fill up our codas. So we have re, vo, lu, shun. Looks good. So what is the message from this? When we do syllable structure, the onset always builds up to the nucleus, and then the nucleus goes down to the coda. So we see these pyramid-like structures. So for instance, if we draw our lines, they should always go up and then down. So in this case, we have 3 straight lines, and then we have a little pyramid here. So codas, not all syllables have codas, so not all of them will be pyramids, but they should always build up and build down. You should never build up, then down, then up again in the same syllable. This goes for any language, every language. So this is a universal principle, sonority hierarchy. So this is a way that we can figure out syllables as well. Lastly, how do we set these up? So again, we did the sonority hierarchy before, but there's other ways to do this. Most important part, and the first part, if you don't want to do all the sonority hierarchy stuff, you don't have any intuition about the language, start with the vowels and put nucleuses above those. So for instance, in revolution, the e, the o, the u, and the put nucleuses above them. And straight up, go to the rhyme. So we build them up to the rhyme. And then we're going to build them up to their own syllables as well. So we're going to build them all the way up from the nucleus. Then what we do is we look left and we say, is that okay to put in the onset? So r, that's okay for the onset in English, so we'll put that there. V, that's okay for the onset in English, we'll put that there. L, that's okay for the onset in English, we'll put that there. Sh, that's okay for the onset, we'll put that there. And then the last part is filling up the coda with everything remaining. So that's how we build up syllable structure. Let's try the word manatee. So again, we look at the vowels, we build them up to syllables. So the a, the and the e. Okay, and then we take a look to the left and we say, is that a good onset? So meh, that's good. So we're going to put that in the onset. I'm going to make this look a little bit nicer this time. N, that is okay as well. And t, that is also okay. Okay, so that's how you do syllables. And you might be wondering, hey, what do you mean if that's an okay onset? Let me take a look at the next example. Okay, so we're going to do a quick break to Spanish here. And I'll talk about onsets. So let's take a word like ski in English. So ski. We take a look here, we start with the nucleus, we build up, and we say, okay, a good onset. Sk. Can we put sk at the beginning of our syllables? And the answer is yes. In English, it's fine. Let me rewrite this here. English. We'll do Spanish over here, just so I don't confuse anybody who just jumped to the video, or jump to this part. Okay, so sk is fine for the onset. So we have ski. Now in Spanish, let's start off the same way. Let's start with the nucleus, all the way up to the rhyme, up to the syllable. And we say, is sk an okay onset in Spanish? And Spanish peoples will tell you, no, it's not. We can only have this k in the onset. So what happens here? Well, there's nothing left to put in the onset. We can't have this sk cluster in the onset of a syllable. So instead what they do is they add this eh here. So now we have two syllables. So we have this new syllable here, which takes the eh, and then this s, this fills up the coda position. So instead of ski, we have esquí. And that's because in Spanish, they don't like this sk consonant cluster in the onset. So when it's not in the onset, it has to be pushed back to the coda of another syllable. So adding a schwa instead, which is how it actually is, it's the schwa there, they can put that s in the coda of another syllable and they can say ski as a ski. Or instead of saying special, they may say special, because they don't like this sk consonant cluster. It's the same with SP and ST. You can probably guess why, because KPT all have very similar properties. So, it's a little tangent there. Let's take a look at the English example for k, the aspirated K. I talked about before how it was in the onset of syllables. So if we take a look here, aspiration occurs in the onset. So for king, what's the word king? Accord, pack, and aching. We can take a look here and we can say, okay, so here's the stress and here's the onset. So we have stress and onset, aspirate it. The second example, we take a look at the onset and the stress, okay, aspirate it. In the third example, this K is in the coda, so there's no aspiration. However, this P here has stress and it's in the onset, so we aspirate the P. Okay, what about primary stress here? It's in the onset, but there's no stress. The stress is on the first syllable, so we don't aspirate it. So there's two conditions for aspiration for K's, P's, and T's. It has to be in the onset of a syllable, and it needs primary stress. So that's the example we did in the last video, and we can see it holds with syllable structure as well. So that's it for syllables. Next time we talk about features. Definitely the most unfun part of phonology, but it's needed. So I understand some of you may not like it, and that's okay. It should be fun. So, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I hope to see you in the next video.